Today's heroine walks down the aisle to marry a count who never even made the original script. Even though it's a marriage of convenience, this girl's practically glowing as the luckiest bride on the planet. At first, her original husband was set to brutally murder her on their wedding night. His name was Raphael Kronhartz, the sneaky antagonist who kept his evil secrets hidden from everyone in the novel. But the guy standing beside her now, Count Kale Belbrington, pulled her from that dark fate. Our heroine's thanking her groom all over again for saving her, because otherwise she'd be marrying the Duke and legging it out the day before the wedding. The groom's just as relieved he ran into her before all that mess went down. Bride and groom step into the chapel, and the master of ceremonies starts calling out their names. Bride, eldest daughter of House Wintersour, Lady Henrika Wintersour. Groom, Lord of Liena, Kalassi, Leoma, and Matina. Henrika can't wrap her head around how many lands he controls, but the man just grins. His titles keep coming. He's also Count of Lucio, Cane, Clava, Lario, Pabane, and Tanasa. Plus, he's the border guardian of Launera and Canarda, and commander of the Dawnlight Knights. Henrika's mind's racing, trying to figure out why he's got so many titles, but she shakes those questions off. Because the main thing is, he's not Duke Kronhartz. Right then, the Master of Ceremonies drops the final title, and Henrika hears something she never saw coming. It turned out she was about to marry the Empire's sword and the Kronhardt family head, Duke Raphael. A month ago, the girl realized she was trapped inside Luna's novel, Cloaked in Darkness. There were a couple of characters in this book way more popular than the main heroes. We're talking about the infamous villainess and her ideological mentor, the Great Duke. Their twisted relationship, where slavery and obsession were all tangled up, could be called some kind of emotional bond that's easy to mistake for love. The chemistry between these villains was off the charts, and readers rooted for the pair, wanting them to be together no matter what. The Duke married a poor woman forced into a political alliance and killed her on their first wedding night. And so, while covering up the brutal murder, he met the villainess hiding in his estate disguised as a maid. Curious about the girl's silence after witnessing the murder, Raphael found out she had dark magic. From that moment on, they started spreading their ruthless evil everywhere. The novel was actually thrilling until it spilled beyond the book's pages. The problem is the heroine ended up in poor Enrica's body, doomed to die on her first wedding night. As soon as the girl took her place, she uncovered a ton of new details about this character. As a mage, Enrica was constantly attacked by her family, who shamelessly used her. When her body was completely drained and her magic nearly gone, her father married her off to the Duke. The room door slams open and the father storms in, realizing his daughter's strength is almost gone. He wants to hear the rumors are all lies. But Henrietta, wiping her tears, admits it's true and begs for forgiveness. Duke Winters calls his daughter a good-for-nothing waste and a burden on their family. Before, that monster always used his daughter as a magical staff. Henrietta apologizes again and promises to find a way to get her powers back if he gives her some time. The Duke considers it a disgrace for some useless fool to represent their family at a banquet. The truth is, she's secretly relieved. She has zero interest in going to that banquet. But her father orders her to get ready now and be packed for the trip, since it's her second public appearance since the Duke's proposal. Once the Duke leaves, Henrietta slumps back on the couch, having zero desire to get ready for the event. A month has passed since she got stuck in this world, but with her magic nearly gone, she can't fix anything. So she's had to endure a few banquets and her father's constant abuse. And she had to put up with the villainous Sarah hanging around, watching her die later. Now the maid walks in, and the heroine makes it clear she's thrilled to see her. Since waking up in this novel, she's been working hard to smooth things over with the villainess. One wrong move and Sarah will despise her. Then she'll lose her head before the wedding even starts. The maid holds up sharp scissors and tells the lady to sit down. There's not much time left before the banquet. The heroine complies, sitting in the chair. The woman still scares her. Those fiery red hair and slanted eyes scream, "Sarah's a villain!" Henrika looks like a naive fool, easy to trick. The heroine asks the maid for her take on Duke Kronhardt's proposal to her. The maid instantly replies, she's definitely against it. Henrika's terrified by that reaction. It's like Sarah can see the future and is mad she's marrying her future husband. But the maid quickly adds, she hasn't had enough time with her lady yet. She's too young for marriage. In her opinion, it'd be better if Henrika had a little more time to explore the world with her. Realizing her efforts to win Sarah's favor weren't in vain, the heroine rushes to hug the maid. But it turns out it's not the acts of kindness. It's that the lady reminds the maid of Lily. It's about a puppy with soft white fur and a cute face Sarah had as a kid. Hearing this, Henrika doesn't know how to react and just smiles. The maid tells the lady to enjoy the event fully. It might be the last one before her wedding. The heroine steps out of the carriage and heads toward the castle. But the thought lingers that this banquet might really be her last. A girl walks into the ballroom and overhears the guests behind her whispering about the Duke's bride, claiming there's nothing extraordinary about her. Enrica approaches the Countess, greets her, and thanks her for the invitation. According to the woman, they were just discussing how surprising it is that someone as scary as the Duke could fall in love. The Countess asks if the rumors are true that the Duke skipped the engagement and rushed to the wedding because he couldn't wait. Also, she wonders if their secret dates were really kept under wraps, since he didn't want to attract extra male attention, and also gave her gifts. None of it was true. He'd never even met the Duke. Suddenly, the girl hesitates, recalling the suspicious carriages that kept arriving at her estate for the past few days. Maybe they were actually gifts meant to keep up the Duke's love-struck legend. Enrica's father is the type who'd sell his daughter for a fortune. Since money's his top priority, he's unlikely to waste it on investigating his daughter's death. Now that the high society's convinced the great Duke is head over heels for Enrica, he's got a solid alibi in everyone's eyes. Looks like he planned every detail carefully, and her chances of getting out of this are getting slimmer by the second. Noticing the confusion on Lady Wintersore's face, the Countess asks if she's all right. Enrica wants out of there fast and apologizes to the Countess, blaming the long trip for her queasiness. The second lady whispers something in the host's ear, but when the Countess is about to share some good news with Enrica, she notices there's not a trace of her left. If the heroine had waited just a moment longer, she would have found out Duke Kronhart had also come to this banquet. Walking through the empty halls, Enrica thinks that now the whole society knows these rumors. Breaking off the engagement won't be possible. The girl doesn't know what else to do, and her head literally feels like it's splitting at the seams. She decides to step onto the balcony for some fresh air and to get her head straight. But when Enrica opens the door, she realizes someone's already there. When the man turns around, she apologizes for the intrusion, but he replies that it's all good. His incredible beauty and the velvety tone of his voice captivate the heroine. Looking at this man, Enrica thinks if Winter had a human form, it would look exactly like him. The girl blushes, staring at the stranger, and trying to figure out who he is. Count Winterthorn and Sarah were in Enrica's memories, so she instantly recognized them when she saw them. But the original heroine's memories don't include this man's face, and the girl hasn't seen anyone like him in the book's illustrations. So she, a little embarrassed, asks the man his name. The stranger is surprised Enrica doesn't recognize him, and his reaction strikes the girl as way too smug. After a short pause, the man introduces himself as Lord Kale Belbrington. The name means nothing to her. She's sure he's not the main character. Enric notices 2 wine glasses on the railing. "Did you have someone waiting here, Count?" Belbrington admits he's realizing now he was waiting for Lady Wintersore, without even knowing it. Kale picks up one of the glasses, holds it out to Enric. "You in for a drink?" The heroine lets her troubles slide for now. The evening with a good-looking, kind man is just what she needs. The mood's gotten to her, a little too much wine, and she's spilling her secrets to the Count. She tells him she doesn't want this wedding at all. She'd do anything to get out of it. The Count's curious. What did Enric's fiancé do to earn her cold shoulder? Was he a jerk? Or are the rumors about him true? She can't tell Kale the real reason. The guy's gonna off her after the wedding. Kale might write her off as crazy. So Enric says it doesn't matter. She just wants to skip the whole thing. After a beat, she decides to drop a big secret on the Count. When he hears she's planning to run from the Empire if she can't call off the wedding, the glass slips from his hand. It shatters on the floor. Enric stares at the Count, wide-eyed. "You okay?" Kale ignores her question. "You got someone special you're running to?" The heroine is confused. "That's not how it is at all." It's not the idea of marriage itself, because Henrika would have married anyone else without hesitation. Though the girl's words caught the Count off guard. He insists she still has a shot. All Lady Wintersore needs to do is find another guy. The idea intrigues her. She hasn't even answered the Duke's proposal yet, but she's not sure how she'll find someone willing to marry her on such short notice. In the Count's eyes, it's no trouble for a stunning noblewoman like her. Still, The heroine doubts anyone would go that far for her. Henrika has 0 friends and barely any acquaintances. Her father went out of his way to keep her magical identity secret and restricted her social life. But she's not about to throw in the towel. Her life's on the line. Steeling her resolve, she turns to the Count, grabs his hand and demands, "Marry me!" She begs for his help, promising to divorce him in a year, and, despite having no money now, vows to work hard and make it up to him. Kyle encircles her hand with his palm, smiles and agrees, adding he'll be eagerly waiting for it. Henrika isn't sure if he's referring to the compensation or the divorce, but the Count laughs and clarifies he meant their wedding. She's thrilled to hear it, but it still feels weird that he agreed so fast. Henrika slaps her cheeks, convinced this is all just a dream. Kale tells her to stop, that he can't stand seeing her hurt. She can't meet his eyes and asks how they'll handle her dad, since he took so many of the Duke's gifts. The Count promises to sort it out and tells her to focus on wedding plans. But Henrika says it's not going to be easy. The whole high society knows the Duke proposed to her. The situation's serious, Kale says, so they should run to the temple and take their vows right now. When she asks if he's really serious, the Count asks her to trust him. She's sure he's doing it to impress her, but his words calm her down. The Count offers his hand, telling her to walk through the hall together and show everyone she's got another man. As they enter the hall arm in arm, she feels the shocked stares of everyone around. She expected it. The whole court knows the great Duke proposed to her. The Count tells her to stay calm and reminds her he's right by her side. Henrika thanks him, but asks if she can ask him one important question. She wants to know his full name. He pulls her close, inhales her scent, and says, "Call me Kale." The aristocrats around them sigh in amazement as they take in the scene. Henrika steps out of the hall, says goodbye to the Count, and makes him promise to visit her. Kale chuckles and reminds him the whole high society's seen them together and thinks they're lovers. He's coming, no way around it. As they part, the man adds, "I'm damn lucky to have met you today." When the carriage pulls away, his assistant sprints over. Melua's been scouring the whole place for his master, Duke Kronhart. Never expected to find him here. Raphael turns to his assistant. "From now on, I'm Count Belbrington. Got it? No mix-ups on the titles." Kronhart's also curious why Henrika didn't recognize what he looked like. Melua's not surprised. The Duke skipped most banquets for night training and monster hunts. Plus, no one's got a portrait of Kronhart. Duke Wintersore's got a tight grip on his daughter's circle. Duke orders his assistant, "Make sure every guest here today keeps their mouth shut, because from now on I'm Count Belbrington." Melua nods. "I'll follow orders, but sir, what the hell is going on?" Kronhart says, "That girl is exactly what I need. I can't afford to lose her." He'll do whatever it takes to keep her close, even if it means pulling off a scandalous stunt. The heroine walks in, but not even the servants say hello. After all, she's the eldest daughter. Henrietta's used to the rough treatment. Now all she wants is to get to her room and collapse into bed. Suddenly, the butler steps forward and informs her the master is waiting in his study. The Duke glares at his daughter's fancy dress and mutters she finally looks presentable. Word got out the great Duke turned up at today's banquet, so he needs to know if Henrietta properly greeted him. Hearing this, she freezes in terror. If Kronhart was at the event, then he definitely saw everything that happened. She realizes she's doomed. She might die before the wedding even happens. The father notices her scared face and panics she didn't impress the Duke. Henrietta plays along and claims she gave Kronhart the proper greeting. The father orders her to start wedding prep and demands she stay slim until the big day. He's pleased his daughter will finally be useful and reminds her everything she does for the family will help her too. As the Duke says this, Henrietta notices his icy stare is slightly warmer. This gives her hope. If she asks, maybe he'll actually listen to her. Still shaking, the heroine asks her dad how he'd react if she told him she didn't want to marry the Duke. Winterthorn eyes her coldly, then slaps her hard across the face. He's fuming because she started spewing nonsense the second he gave her a compliment. He kicks her out of the study, vowing next time it'll be worse than a slap if she dares say that again. Enrique walks out, stunned she ever thought he'd give her a different answer. Sarah, the maid, is surprised to find her back so late. Noticing her red cheek, Sarah sits her on the bed and starts telling her about her dog. When Sarah was a kid, her dog Lily ran off alone one day. She came back with terrible injuries. The neighborhood bullies were angry she wouldn't play with them, so they attacked Lily. But after that, they never dared mess with her again. Sarah made sure they paid for it. Now, seeing her mistress, Sarah instantly remembers sweet little Lily. Even though Sarah's as heartless as the heroine's dad, she's different. Enrique actually feels real care from her, so she decides to share the good news with her maid. She's getting married. Sarah freezes when Enrique reveals the groom isn't Kronhart, but a guy she met at tonight's banquet. Realizing what she just said, the girl jumps up, furious that the mistress dares to say such a thing. Enrique tries to calm her down and explain that she doesn't want to marry the Duke. Sarah drowns Enrique with questions about her new fiancé, trying to get every detail. According to the girl, it's Count Belbrington. Super tall, and the most handsome guy she's ever seen. The maid says tall guys are just terrible, and all pretty boys are scoundrels. Enrique laughs, getting why the girl doesn't trust her choice. So she promises to try introducing them at their next meeting, and not marry him if Sarah doesn't approve. The maid sits next to her mistress and hugs her with a sad face. It's not that Sarah doesn't trust Enrique. It's that she's just scared bad people might hurt her. Though she initially feared this girl because of her villain reputation, now she seems like a strong, reliable older sister. The next morning, Enrique stares at her reflection in the mirror, feeling down. Sarah tells her to stop picking at the bruise so it heals faster. Then, suddenly glaring fiercely with a knife in hand, she vows to make whoever hurt her mistress pay. Enrique thanks her for the support, even if her words are pretty scary. Martha's maid walks in and says the girl invites the mistress to join her tea in the garden. Marta Wintersour is the younger sister of Enrique, whom everyone in this manor adores. Unlike her older sister, the devoted introvert, she easily bonded with their father thanks to her sweet nature. In fact, even the servants are completely smitten with their little mistress. Yet for some reason, Enrique was the only person Marta seemed to harbor hostility toward. She often came up with clever ways to provoke her sister, without others understanding her motives. Marta especially loved spreading nasty rumors among the servants, and thanks to her efforts, everyone in the house labeled Enrique as a mean, envious older sister. Because of this, the heroine's treatment in the Duke's household became unbearable. For example, when Marta strolled in the garden, the servants asked Enrique to find another spot for her walks. The best dresses the girls had were given to her younger sister, with the words that the clothes deserved a better owner. The cook served Enrique spoiled food, claiming Lady Marta didn't complain about her own dinner. And so the heroine lived in a house where everyone was always trying to find some way to provoke her. So when Marta suddenly and out of the blue invites her sister for a cup of tea, it can only mean she's up to something again. Before Enrique can say anything, Sarah steps forward and asks the maid to tell Lady Marta that her sister isn't feeling well today. The girl sarcastically notes that such a response is rudeness toward her lady's kindness. But Sarah gives her such a bone-chilling stare that the maid shivers. Enrique doesn't know how to thank her only real support in this house. According to Sarah, there's nothing surprising about her reaction. The wind outside could mess with the lady's cheek wound. Still, to Sarah's surprise, Enrique thinks she should still go meet her sister and asks for help getting ready. Since you never know what tricks Martha's got up her sleeve to turn their dad against her, the heroine decides to just play along this time. When she steps into the garden, her sister is sitting in the gazebo sipping tea. Martha's shocked that after her arrogant refusal, Enrique actually showed up for the meeting. But when she turns around, she's surprised to see a red mark on her older sister's cheek. Enrique doesn't even try to hide the bruise, figuring Martha's probably happy to see their dad laying into her. But the girl suddenly asks if the dad's been too hard on her, if it's his doing. That comment catches both Enrique and Sarah off guard. Martha suddenly jumps on the maid, claiming she didn't treat her sister's wound properly. Sarah insists she did a good job yesterday, and it should heal soon. But Martha keeps pushing, convinced it might leave a scar. Finally, Sarah snaps, and gloatingly declares that if that's the case, she'll make sure the Duke's cheek suffers just as much. To lighten the tension, the heroine asks the maid to grab a pie from the kitchen. Left alone with her sister, Martha asks her about last night's banquet. She figures Enrique, as always, just stood around at the event. As expected, it didn't take the girl long to show her true colors. She heard from their father that her sister met the great Duke at the banquet and now wants to know if his looks are really that impressive. Enrique responds evasively, because she can't admit she never met Kronhart. Martha thinks the Duke's pretty face means nothing, since rumors say he murdered his whole family to take over power. Enrique knows her sister is trying to scare her, even though she already knows this info. So Enrique doesn't react at all when Martha says Kronhart lays hands on women when he's drunk. Martha loses her cool, not getting how her sister can stay so calm when her marriage might become a nightmare. She yells that Enrica will have to share a bed with a killer who'll beat her up daily. As she's ranting, Martha doesn't hear someone sneaking up behind her. She thinks her sister is just ignoring her, but Enrica's actually staring in awe at Kale approaching them. Martha notices Enrica's looking over her shoulder, like she saw a ghost. When Martha turns and realizes a man was there the whole time, she screams in shock. By her sister's reaction, Enrica starts thinking they know each other. But before Enrica can even think about it, the Count walks up to her and starts talking about how he's been missing her. She's super shocked that Kale decided to drop by so fast and just waltzed past the guards like they weren't even there. Guess he's pretty well known if the gatekeeper just let him into the estate without a second thought. Since the weather's nice today, the Count suggests a walk in the garden. She agrees. No way they're standing around here if the dad's gonna spot them for sure. Thing is, she's a little nervous about leaving her sister like that. Meanwhile, Martha catches herself feeling jealous, something she really didn't want to feel. During the walk, she asks the Count how he knows her sister. He says they ran into each other at a banquet a couple years back. And yeah, he called out some gossiping lady pretty harshly that day, so it's no wonder Martha freaked out seeing him here. Still, Enrique gets the feeling Martha was way too shocked by their meeting. Kale smirks and asks if she actually believes the rumors about the Great Duke. The Cronhart novel didn't actually have that much info on him. Raphael was portrayed as this mysterious guy, and they never mentioned anything about his family or past. But hey, readers loved that villain, so she never thought he'd be some drunk who beats up women. Even though killing for personal reasons is a whole different ballgame. The Count takes her hand, and she realizes she probably took too long to answer. She says she don't buy what people say without proof. But it ain't the rumors making her skip the Duke's wedding. Kale locks eyes with the girl and squeezes her hand tighter. Enrique says her dad'll blow a gasket if he finds out she's trying to break off the engagement. The Count rubs her bruised cheek and asks if her father did that to her. He's sure her face was clean of bruises yesterday. But Enrique's flustered. She doesn't want to stir up trouble, so she asks if he'll buy the story that she just tripped and smacked her cheek. Kale's ready to go along with it if that's what she needs. Enrique watches his face fall and doesn't get why he's so down. But the Count ain't letting this slide. He's got a plan. Before she can process, a carriage pulls up, and Kale's got her scrambling in. He's not leaving her here after spotting that slap mark. Time to get her home. He don't see why they can't do it. Marriage plans or no. He'll handle explaining to her dad. But no ways he letting the Duke lay another hand on her. She's trying to argue she can't leave without her stuff. Then Sarah's there. The maid tells her to chill. She's already packed the bags. Enrica doesn't get what's going on, since as far as she remembers, Sarah went to the kitchen for a pie. Since everything's settled and there's no point hanging around, Kale climbs into the carriage and suggests moving out. The heroine asks him to hold on. It's all happening too fast. They just met the Count yesterday, after all. The man gives Enrica a sharp look and asks, what if this wasn't their first meeting? Even though she's confused, Kale promises she'll learn everything in time if she stays close to him. The Count says he needs her just as much as she needs him. The journey's so tiring, she falls asleep with her head on Kale's shoulder. Sarah, sitting across from them, wants to know why the guy brought her along. He doesn't even know her. The Count says he did it because Lady Wintersore wanted it that way. But Sarah thinks it looked like he meant to take her along from the start. Not just Enrica. Sarah followed her mistress. Anywhere's better than staying in her father's house. But she doesn't trust Duke Cronhart at all, and wants to know why he's trying to trick Enrica into marriage like this. The Duke finds it funny coming from someone who's cheating on her own mistress, and he doesn't think a fugitive dark witch has any right to lecture him. Sarah can't figure out how Cronhart knows all that about her, but he tells her to keep it down so she doesn't wake Enrica. The Duke gets that the girl's worried, but he's dead set on keeping not a single hair out of place on Lady Wintersore's head. Raphael says she's the only one who can pull him out of this mess. The second he steps into the estate, he's all smiles, welcoming Enrica into their new shared home. She can't help but gawk at the crystal chandeliers, marble statues, and live peacocks strutting around. This place is straight up loaded. As she's still staring at those shimmering peacock feathers, Malua sidles up to Cronhart, asking for time to brief him on the monster hunt report. Alone with Sarah now, Enrica leans in, curious how she knew Kale was coming to take her. Because let's face it, she showed up with her bags all packed, just in the nick of time. Sarah starts fidgeting, scrambling for the right words. A few hours back, Sarah overheard Raphael giving the go-ahead to his assistant, planning to snatch Enrica today. He didn't see why not, Permissions from her dad were already signed off. Instead of spilling the beans, Sarah makes a request. Just one thing she wants Henrika to do. She wants Henrika to promise not to blow a gasket over something big she's been keeping under wraps. Henrika's mind immediately goes to dark magic. Sarah hiding some kind of forbidden power. But before she can press Sarah for answers, Kale walks back in, all smooth, asking her to grab dinner after the trip. Henrika decides to circle back to Sarah later. For now, she follows the Count to dinner. Saru is plagued by guilt for having to lie to her mistress. Over dinner, the heroine asks the Count the real reason he accepted her proposal. It feels weird to her that he agreed so fast to a marriage of convenience. Plus, Henrietta wants to know what Kale meant by saying he needs her. The Count stands up silently from the table, walks to the girl, and kneels before her. He takes Henrietta's hand and presses her palm to his chest. At first, the heroine is flustered, but then a strange feeling hits her. The man smiles and admits he's cursed and doesn't have a heart. His body without a heart is no different from a corpse now. He's barely holding it together with magic. The Count reminds Henrietta he said he hadn't seen her for the first time yesterday. The truth is, he first saw the girl from afar at the Marietta family's ball. That's when the man had a very strange experience for the first time. He felt like his non-existent heart was pounding nonstop. That's when he realized only Henrietta could break the true nature of his curse. The heroine wants to know what happens if the curse is destroyed. According to the guy, he's got just a year. If things don't change by then, he's dead meat. His magic can't keep his body going past that. Later, lying in bed, Henrika replays the Count's words in her head. She can't let him die. Her old man would ship her off to the Grand Duke for sure if he did. When she thinks back on Kaylee's gentle touches to her face, it hits her. He's not dying, no way. She's got to figure out how to help the Count break that curse. Only problem? Her magic's about tapped out. Then it hits her. Back in the original novel, Henrika's always had Vermont, her familiar, hiding out as a cat. At home, where she had no one else to rely on, Vermont was the only one she could call a friend. The book says familiars can only go back to Demon World if the contract's broken, or if the master croaks. Henrika can't remember breaking the contract. That means Vermont's still somewhere in the duchy. Since demons can break curses, Henrika's already heading out to track Vermont down. But on the way, she runs into Kaylee's assistant. Milua asks Lady Winters for help, saying she forgot something at home and wants to go back for it. But then the guy flat out says no. He says the Count's out on a trip and will kill Milua if he finds out his bride left the estate while he's gone. Even though it's hard to swallow, Kale seems like a good guy. The assistant says that's only how he acts around her. The heroine asks Milua to help her with this problem, since there's definitely something at home she can't live without. After a quick think, the assistant decides to personally accompany Lady Wintersoar if it really means that much to her. Getting to the spot, Enrique can't believe she's back here just a day after her escape. The girl spots the maids coming out from the gates and darts behind a tree to avoid being seen. The heroine notices that even after her escape, the estate is exactly the same as before. It's also weird that neither her dad nor the mighty Duke showed any reaction to the news. Enrique figures they probably don't care about her at all. Suddenly, the girl spots a cat the maids just noticed and are now trying to pet. But the cat suddenly jumps up, claws a maid, and bolts. Amazed she tracked down Vermont so easily, Enrique rushes after the cat. Catching up proves tricky since the cat weaves into one of the rooms fast. The thought of the cat darting into the long-abandoned room gives her the creeps. It's been empty for ages because of those ghost stories. This dusty room used to be Enrique's mom's. Here the heroine finds a bunch of magical stuff and books. That means the Duchess was a mage. If that's true, it explains why Enrica, a second-tier character, had magical abilities. The girl's thoughts are interrupted by a cat knocking a book off the shelf. The book crashes down, smacking the heroine in the face and hurting her. The cat jumps down, and Enrica notices the cover. It's Vivian Montemore's diary. Suddenly, footsteps echo from behind the door. Scared housemaids approach, having heard a whisper in the long-shut room of the late Duchess. Peeking through the door, the girls confirm the room's empty. When Enrica returns to the carriage, Melua is stunned by her look. She's covered in leaves, clutching the cat and a book. Actually, to avoid the housemaids, the heroine climbed out the window and down a nearby tree. When she asks if the Count would mind her bringing an animal into the mansion, the assistant smiles and says he'll go along with any lady's request. Already in the carriage, the heroine wonders how to check if it's really Vermont. She decides to try talking to the cat, which doesn't react to her words. Enrica stares at the animal for a while, and suddenly the cat lifts its devilish eyes to meet hers. Calling her an idiot, the cat rudely asks what she's staring at, leaving her confused. The heroine is so shocked by the talking cat that he tells her to keep it down. Vermont says he's a demon who's been around for over 400 years. Enrica is surprised the cat doesn't know who she is, so she tells him her name. Vermont says he can't even remember the last time he was at the estate, and the guy who summoned him is gone, so their contract's been canceled for ages. The magical connection must have weakened after the contractor disappeared, so now the demon can't even remember his face. The heroine is totally lost about what's going on, but at least she doesn't have to explain the whole possession thing. Vermont's just as confused. This girl feels familiar, even though he's never seen her before. He asks Enrica why she brought him along, since she clearly needed something if she was looking for a demon. The girl tells him her fiancé is cursed and she wants to break it, but Vermont says he doesn't know how. No matter how powerful a familiar is, they can't just undo curses. The easiest fix would be to track down whoever cast the curse and make them take it back. Enrica figures if it were that simple, her fiancé wouldn't have come to her for help. Of course, in his centuries of existence, there have been rare cases where curses got lifted through magic. 100 years ago, there was a guy who really pissed off a dark wizard. The wizard cursed him and made his whole body rot. After searching endlessly, the man finally found a way to save himself. It turned out to be a magical set of scales passed down through generations in a noble family. But the catch was, it demanded a price as harsh as a curse. Since he had no real assets, he sacrificed both his eyes. In the end, the man lost all hope over his blindness and took his own life. Even getting dragged into this mess could bring disaster, so Vermont tells Enrique to break off the engagement and run. When asked where the scales are now, the cat surprisingly answers that they're with the family they just left. She can't believe it's talking about her childhood estate, Wintersore. When they reach the Count's estate, Vermont's impressed by the gloomy vibe here. Meanwhile, Enrique's horrified she'll have to return to Wintersore, this time to retrieve the scales. She asks the demon if he knows the exact spot where he hid that magical item. But Vermont doesn't know the exact location. However, he definitely caught their scent there about 100 years back. Right now, the familiar's far from its contractor. His magic's weak, so he needs to regain his strength. To do that, Vermont needs a new contract with a strong mage to feed off their energy. And Enrique volunteers to be his next partner. The demon reminds him he needs a powerful mage, even though the girl could break the spell holding her powers back. He explains Enrique hasn't used up her power at all. It's just locked up by someone's binding spell. First off, Vermont tells her to take a look at the book she's been holding this whole time. According to the demon, this book smells exactly like Enrica's magic. The heroine sits down at the table, trying to find the key to the mystery in the diary. In it, Vivian recounts how she first met Duke Wintersore. Unlike the others who see mages as pure evil, the Duke called her a modest girl and was very kind. With a strange feeling, Enrica reads about the future Duchess's excitement before the wedding to Wintersore. The girl wonders why she jumped so quickly from their first meeting straight to the engagement. Right then, the heroine finds a portrait of Vivian Montemore's daughter among the pages. In her diary, she also described how she carefully followed every order the Duke gave, and how mercilessly he exploited her. Vivian gathered information for him using her magic, and even spread rumors about others. A girl who was naturally kind suffered from guilt every night, but she kept doing it for the Duke she loved. Nearly a month had passed since Vivian got pregnant. That's when she saw the Duke with another girl. Right then, Vivian realized that all she had left was thoughts about the future life with her child. When the girl tried to figure out what the Duke's deal was with that woman, he reminded her their marriage wasn't based on love. Since Vivian got the kid she wanted from him, Winterthorn couldn't get why she was clinging to him like that. Not long after, that woman gave the Duke a daughter named Martha, and he was completely smitten with the little tyke. But one day, the girl's mom died when her carriage flipped on the way home. The Duke figured Vivian's magic had something to do with the accident. They locked her up and tortured her for a confession. The Duchess was so weak, she could feel her time was up. Looking at Enrique, Vivian thought she couldn't let her daughter be used the same way she was. With the magic she had left, all the Duchess could do was cast a spell to hold back the girl's powers until she turned 18. She wanted Enrique to find her true love and give her magic to just that one person. Reading Vivian's heartfelt words, tears started streaming down the heroine's eyes. Even though the girl wasn't her real daughter, She still felt the same pain and crushing loneliness the Duchess went through. She made a silent promise to Vivian. Now that she was in Enrique's body, she wouldn't dance to the Duke's tune anymore. The heroine didn't even realize she'd fallen asleep. The next morning, warm sunlight through the window woke her up. Vermonde rushed over to Enrique, asking what happened last night and if she really got her powers back. Turns out, her mana was seriously overflowing. She offers the familiar a contract, but Vermonde tells her to take it slow and asks if she still wants to break the curse on her fiancé. After the affirmative, the cat says he won't make a deal with her. He's not getting involved with something this shady, even if he'd go for it if she wanted world domination. Vermonde plans to head back to the demon realm if she doesn't change her mind. The heroine smirks. She reminds the familiar he might not have the strength to go back. He himself said he needs to drain his contractor's energy to recharge, so Enrique figures it's clear who needs the help more. The familiar can't believe this girl just tried to threaten him, but the heroine says she just called it like it is. She tells Vermonde to think about her offer. Over breakfast, Kale chats with Enrique about her familiar, but her mind's on something else. She's got her strength back, but has no clue what to do next. First, the heroine plans to dig up info on the wish-granting artifact. Kale snaps her out of it by suddenly feeding her fruit with a fork. She asks the Count to let her attend the Marquis's upcoming masquerade ball. From his reaction, the heroine thinks Kale's annoyed with her request. But the Count insists that's not the case. He just doesn't see why he should willingly step into that aristocratic mess when he could be relaxing in his fancy manner. Figuring Kale won't budge so easily, Enrique decides to pull out her trump card. Putting on a sorrowful expression, she apologizes and says her dad always felt the same way. She says the Duke was ashamed of her and kept saying a girl shouldn't just waltz out of the house whenever she felt like it. Enrique admits she went too far when she thought leaving home meant she could start over with a clean slate. But the Count grins and says that's not what he meant at all. Since he can't keep up with her, she's free to do whatever she wants. Before she can thank him, Kale cuts in and proposes a post-lunch shopping trip for a new dress. The moment they step into the boutique, Enrique thinks it's way too fancy for her, but the Count shrugs it off. The store owner practically bumps into them, almost slipping up and calling Kale by his real name. But Kronhart gives him this icy glare, and the guy scrambles to fix his mistake. Melua warned the owner 10 minutes ago to just call the Duke Count and stop asking questions. Enrique's eyes go wide at the sea of gorgeous dresses hanging everywhere. Kale turns to the staff and asks for a recommendation for his bride. The consultant suggests a soft pink dress that matches the girl's hair color, made overseas. Even though Enrique decides to go with this dress, Kale keeps discussing other options with the salesperson. The Count notices his bride-to-be's surprised look and declares he's going to buy her at least 30 dresses. He wants to have one dress ready for every event, even though Enrique thinks it's a total waste of money. Plus, Kale figures he's coming out ahead because trying on all those dresses will take forever, and he'll be on her mind the whole time. After a couple of hours, all the dresses are chosen, and after packing them in pretty boxes, the boutique owner promises to ship them straight to the estate. Kale suggests Enrique step outside for some fresh air while he handles the payment. After thanking the Count, the girl exits the store. The heroine can't wrap her head around how rich this guy is, just buying her 30 dresses at once. Marta suddenly appears, interrupting Enrique's thoughts. Wanting to talk to her sister, the heroine turns away, figuring they have nothing to talk about, and tells the girl to leave. Marta tries to catch up to Enrique, but the Count's guards block her path. According to Kale, the girl's being totally rude trying to take someone who already has company. Scared, Marta tries to explain she was just trying to talk. Enrique tells the Count not to worry and promises to send her sister home once they talk. While Kyle waits outside, the girls head to the nearest cafe where the heroine asks why Marta suddenly showed up. She wants to know if Henri's really not coming back home. From what she says, the Duke wasn't even mad about the daughter running off, since she just sped up what was already going to happen. It's even kinda sad how her dad just drops her like that. But then Marta drops the bomb that she found Henri's diary when she left the family estate. So now she probably knows how the Duke was totally exploiting Henri. The diary has every time he abused her, every time he talked to her like trash. Marta admits she had no idea the dad was treating Henri like that. But the heroine isn't buying it. She thinks Henri knew all along and just turned a blind eye. She's no better than the dad. Same trashy junkie, picking on Henri every chance she got. The girl screams at her and the mom for this whole mess. And when the heroine stays chill and asks if she means the Great Duchess, Marta freezes. From Marta's reaction, Henri realizes the sister knew they weren't blood-related. Probably the Duke told Marta Vivian was to blame for their mom's death, making her hate Henri. Grabbing the heroine's hand, Marta begs her not to say anything about her being born out of wedlock. Enrica insists she never planned to do it because she's nothing like Marta. She finally tells her sister to start thinking for herself instead of blindly echoing their father's words. Maybe it's easy for her to blame everyone else, but she needs to remember her mom's accident was just that. An accident. Since Enrica has nothing more to say to Marta, she says goodbye and leaves the cafe. The sister stays frozen in the middle of the room, head bowed, a tear sliding down her cheek. Time flew by unnoticed, and suddenly it's the day of the masquerade ball. After getting dressed, the heroine feels a bit uncomfortable in this dress, but Sarah assures her mistress she looks absolutely stunning. When Enrica walks downstairs, the Count, already dressed for the event, stares at his bride with admiration. Seeing her in that dress, he feels that old flutter in his non-existent heart again. Once they're in the carriage, Kale asks if Enrica's sure she wants to go to the ball alone. He doesn't want to let her go by herself. But the heroine apologizes, saying she has to stick to her decision. The Count agrees, and they settle that he'll escort her back once the ball is over. Putting on her mask, the heroine steps into the Dake Marquise's estate. The real reason she's here today is the imperial gifts the Marquis will receive for his service. The girl knows the gifts were stolen, according to the original story. The main character, a prince who came here for a secret meeting with the heroine, takes off his mask. He starts threatening Sir Dane with execution for losing the Emperor's gifts. The Marquis blames his wife, the hostess in charge of the gifts, for everything. But as soon as the prince raises his sword over Lady Dane's head, the heroine steps in. She begs His Highness not to be so cruel and to spare the woman for her sake. That's how the heroine earns Lady Dane's loyalty, since she saved her life. Looking back, Henrika sees the whole story's absurdity. It's no wonder the villains were more popular than the heroes. But that means today she can win Lady Dane's loyalty herself, because she knows who stole the gifts. Henrika walks up to Lady Dane and asks if she needs help. The woman is stunned by the girl's sudden question. Henrika goes ahead and asks Lady Dane directly if the Emperor's gifts went missing. Lady Dane has no idea how this stranger knows everything and starts suspecting her. Henrika Winterthorn takes off her mask, introduces herself to Lady Dane, and says she can track down the missing gifts. And even though Lady Dane has reasons to doubt her, Henrika argues she wouldn't have removed her mask if she were the thief. The Marquise agrees to trust the Winterthorn name and promises to reward Henrika if she helps her out. Meanwhile, Sophia Figreen trudges wearily down a dark corridor. The ball wore her out with the pressure from high society, who recognized her even behind the mask. Until recently, Sophia was just a plain, unnoticed baron's daughter. Everything changed when she started a fake romance with the second prince. From the day the prince asked her to be his lover, Sophia's troubles began. He made that choice to avoid his brother's constant surveillance. The second prince was sure that if he pretended to be in love with a simple, unnoticed girl from a minor noble family, his brothers would suspect him less. In exchange for her cooperation, he promised Sophia a monthly payment of 9 billion gold coins. At first, their fake relationship went pretty smoothly, but soon the prince started criticizing her for not acting like the naive airhead he originally wanted. He taught Sophia with a smug face how to open her mouth just right to look dumber, and she barely held back from slapping him. In the end, this fake romance became a total nightmare for the girl who was exhausted by it all. She wishes she could tell the prince everything she thinks about him. As she walks down the corridor lost in thought, Sophia suddenly stumbles upon a strange scene. Pink-haired girl, seething with rage, demands to know where the other woman stashed the gifts, grabs her foe by the necklace, threatening revenge if she doesn't fess up. Sophia watches, thinking how she'd love to grab the prince by the collar like that. She gazes at the girl in admiration. Right now, she's the ultimate vision of feminine strength. Lady Brown, the mastermind behind the stolen gifts, demands Antwort knows to explain herself, acts like she's clueless about what it's all about and why Antwort even suspects her. But our heroine's got a trump card. She declares she's fully within her rights to suspect Brown, since she knows about their secret affair with the Marquise. Antwort knows the Marquise gave his mistress the key to the Dake estate's storage room, and she's been quietly swiping all the valuables. Antwort points out it's in Lady Brown's best interest to return the loot. If the Marquise finds out, his mistress is going to get a world of trouble. Later, Lady Dake thanks Antwort for her help and announces she's divorcing her husband first thing. The Marquis adds that Antwort's smarts and guts are definitely fit for an Archduchess. Antwort's thrown for a loop. This means the whole engagement with the Archduke is being talked about in the high society gossip. The Marquise is baffled by Antwort's reaction. She thought Lady Winterthorpe came here with the Duke. Lady Dake is certain she saw His Grace's name on the guest list. Bursting out of the office, Antwort panics. What now? She could run into Duke Cronhard at the ball. Enrica decides to hang out on the terrace for a bit, then try to slip out unnoticed once everyone starts leaving the ball. Rubbing the bite from a little bug on her wrist, she suddenly feels someone standing right behind her. She spins around to see a tall guy in a mask, and at first mistakes him for Kale. But when the stranger calls her by name, his voice sounds colder and rougher, and Enrica freezes, realizing it's Duke Cronhart. He pauses for a second, then confirms her suspicions. A bone-chilling fear takes hold of her. Just hearing his voice triggers a storm of emotions. She feels exactly like she did in her final moments. Desperation to live and regret, both stronger than the pain, wash over her. Enrica frantically scrambles to think of a plan. The Duke's not letting her off the hook after she turned down his proposal and ran away. She's begging Cronhart for forgiveness when she starts hiccuping from the nerves. From the window, it looks like she's crying. The Archduke's clearly worried. But Enrica's terrified he's about to snap from her annoying whining. So she resolves to step outside and beg on her knees for mercy. But before she can even touch the door, the Archduke vanishes into the crowd. She's relieved she didn't have to face him, but she's got no clue why he left so suddenly. The streets packed with nobles. Enrica figures someone from the imperial family just showed up. But as she steps forward a bit, she spots Kay. Wrapping her in a hug, he reminds her of his promise to come get her. Enrica hears the nobles whispering. Settling into the carriage, Enrica admits she got worked up seeing Kay at the main entrance. He could run into the Duke. Well, at least this way, people see them together, she thinks. Enrica tells Kay the Marchioness was spouting nonsense about her becoming an Archduchess. As she says this, she notices tears welling in the Count's eyes. When Enrica asks why, Kay turns away and says he won't cry, even though there are things that make him want to. Enrica's already brainstorming ways to cheer him up. Snapping his focus back, she suggests showing him something awesome. Clasping her hands, she focuses, trying to remember the rush she felt when her magic first kicked in. Finally it clicks, and Kay's eyes light up with amazement. She admits she's got her powers back. The Count's watching the glowing butterflies with wide eyes. "This is incredible!" he breathes. Enrica explains she did everything she could. She thought this might help break his curse. Kay never imagined she'd go this far for him. But the heroine thinks it's totally normal. I mean, even if their engagement is fake and temporary, he's still technically her fiancé. So she's gonna do everything in her power to break the curse. Just like he's doing everything for her. Kale smiles and says he's really lucky to have met Enrica. When the carriage finally pulls up to the mansion, Enrica notices the Count's fast asleep. Suddenly, tears are streaming down his cheeks, and in his sleep, Kale begs her not to be so cruel. It's weird for the heroine to see just how vulnerable he is when he's asleep. She sits down next to him and gently runs her fingers through his hair. Enrica realizes she knows nothing about the Count's family or his past, so she's gonna ask him whenever the opportunity comes up. The servants are already waiting outside, so the heroine tries to wake Kale up. She reaches out, but he suddenly snaps awake, grabs her wrist, and pushes her back into the seat. Their faces are inches apart. Kale touches her hair, thinking it's all just a dream. Enrica grabs his face in her hands, trying to tell him he's not asleep anymore. The guys are still inside the carriage, so Malua opens the door to make sure they're okay. He peeks inside and freezes, shocked, to see Enrica lying on the seat with Kale hovering over her. The assistant is so flustered by the scene, he bolts out the door, ignoring Enrica's attempts to explain it's not what he thinks. A few days later, the heroine gets an invitation from Marquis Dake to visit her and have a cup of tea. Enrica brags about the invite to Vermont, but he doesn't give it a second thought and keeps scratching his ear. Marquis Dake comes from a prestigious knightly family. She had brutal training as a young woman and now holds a top position in high society after retiring. Enrica thinks she's won the woman's favor and could become a reliable ally. Watching the girl's excitement, Vermont figures she's finally decided to dump that guy. The girl says it's all to lift the curse from Kale, but the cat doubts she can do it without his help. According to Enrica, all she can do now is awaken her own magic. Last time she got lucky, magic wasn't needed, but there's no telling it won't be required next time. so she admits to Vermont she really wants to get them back and hopes he'll help. The familiar locks eyes with the heroine, leans down, and bites his collar. The next second, the bell slams into Enrica's forehead as Vermont yells he hates her. He's annoyed she's helpless, but strolls around like she can save her useless lover. The familiar's irritated. She's got a 400-year-old demon in her hands and doesn't even think about world domination. After spitting that out, Vermont leaps off the table and bolts out the room. During the ball, Enrica didn't get a good look at how stunning Dake's estate is. So now she stands there, staring in awe at the elegant mansion. She glances around, misses a pebble under her feet, stumbles, and falls. A stranger nearby catches Enrica before she hits the ground. The green-eyed stranger asks if she's hurt, but she thanks him and says she's fine. Enrica's leg aches from a twisted ankle. The man notices, easily lifts her into his arms, ignoring her protests. He smirks and says helping someone in need is every knight's duty. The Marquise suddenly storms out, furious at her brother's behavior. Tristan lets go of Enrica the second he spots his sister. Later, once her ankle's wrapped, the Marquise apologizes and tells her to go home and rest, even though she's got a ton of questions. She rips into her brother for messing up with their esteemed guest, but he claims he was just trying to help. Enrica tries to shut down the argument and asks the Marquise what she wanted to talk about. The woman says there's nothing serious going on. After the banquet, someone came up to her asking to set up a meeting with Lady Wintersoar. Enrica figures it's about Duke Kronhart, but the Marquise drops a totally different name. The girl can't figure out why the main character in this story, Sophia Fagrin, is trying to track her down. It's actually kind of creepy. Marchioness thought Sophia's comment about Lady Wintersoar capturing her with her spirit was weird, so she shot back that she barely knows the woman. This actually makes Henrique happy. Avoiding the Duke is already hard enough, and she definitely doesn't need to deal with a main character who's tangled up with some clueless prince and causing a mess. According to Tristan, Lady Wintersoar must have some kind of power to totally mess with people's heads just by looking at them. He grabs the girl's hand and asks if he can walk her home. Marchioness flips out again and yells at her brother to get his hands off her guest. Even though Lady Dake knows exactly what Tristan's up to, he insists this time was totally innocent. Marchioness won't hear any of it. She drags Henrique toward the carriage and tells Tristan to back off. After they leave the room, the heroine asks if Lady Dake had to be such a drama queen about her brother helping out. Lady Dike's dead set on Enrique keeping her distance. Marchioness says Tristan's got more ex-lovers than she can count. He's a total player. On her way home, the heroine figures Dake might be wrong about Tristan. Family always exaggerates, right? The butler interrupts with a bouquet from Tristan. The note says to remember him by the flowers, not the twisted ankle. Henrique starts to think Dake might not be totally off. Tristan probably isn't as innocent as he claims. Kale walks up to the heroine and eyes the flowers she's holding. "What have you got there?" He doesn't miss the note clutched in her hand. The Count casually reaches for the note and asks, "Enrica, have you been seeing someone while I was gone?" The heroine shrugs it off. "It's nothing. The flowers are just an apology. I hurt my foot at the Marchioness's." Kale insists, "Show me your ankle now." Even as Enrica protests it's nothing, the Count lifts her into his arms. Confused why everyone seems eager to carry her today, the heroine pleads, "Kale, put me down." The Count smirks. "I'll let you down, on one condition. I file official charges against House Dake for failing to protect my betrothed." Enrica confides her confusion. Why does the Marchioness still think she's marrying the Archduke? To avoid suspicion, the Count replies, "Lady Dake doesn't care about rumors." The heroine realizes she's the center of the servants' attention, while Kale holds her. So embarrassed, Enrica buries her face in his chest, but he tells her not to hide. The servants aren't staring rudely, they're just curious. Kale says they're just not used to seeing him chat with anyone and laugh. He seats her on the couch. "Rest until dinner. I'll send a doctor to check your ankle." But Henrica barely hears the Count. Her mind stuck on what he just said. She asks Kale if he was alone before she came to the estate. She never heard about his family or relatives. The Count sighs, asking if she wants the truth. Kale takes her hand, presses it to his cheek, murmuring most of his relatives are dead. The late Archduke Kronhart had plenty of wives. Raphael's mother was just one of his powerless mistresses. She wanted her son as heir. During pregnancy, she drank a brew from his second wife, and suddenly started losing strength. She barely gave birth before collapsing. Didn't even hold him before closing her eyes forever. The maid didn't get why the kid wasn't crying. No pulse at all, but the boy was definitely alive, breathing faintly. As everyone scrambled for answers, a nameless dark mage suddenly showed up. He claims it's a curse, says only he can save the kid before he croaks. The Archduke didn't give a damn about his son. With no other options, the maids handed the baby to the dark mage. So Raphael Kronhart became that wizard's test subject. He had to endure every kind of magical experiment, most of which left him unconscious. Sometimes the kid would think it would have been better if he'd just died. But the wizard would pump him full of magic, keeping him alive one more day at a time. Pour water into a cracked vessel long enough, and it'll shatter. Raphael was supposed to die by 20. When he was 10, Raphael finally tried to fight back. He lunged at the man, crying, demanding he let him die. The mage laughed and said, "Well, I guess it's time. I'll send you back." He was curious how Raphael's cursed life would end. He claimed Raphael would suffer more than he'd ever seen in his life. He walked up to the kid, promised him freedom, and ordered him to fight to survive. "Entertain me for the rest of your life." The Kronhart family got word from the Dark Mage, did a quick check, and officially took Raphael in. Family was something the kid had never even considered. He finally knew what a soft, comfortable bed and warm food tasted like. But before Raphael could appreciate the sudden luxury, someone tried to kill him for the first time. It didn't scare the kid. He'd been through this kind of crap his whole life. Every day, his siblings tried to poison Raphael and sent hired killers after him. Strolling the streets, he bribed wizards to fill his fading body with magic, extending his life. While Raphael endured every twist of fate, waiting for his time, his supporters were gathering strength in the Duke's estate. When everything was ready, he launched his counterattack. His older brother, who kept slipping him poisons, died after drinking a cup of tea. The carriage of his second oldest sister, who hired killers for him, met with an accident. When it came to the third heir, Raphael lost his restraint and set an example for the rest. When rumors spread that the Kronhart bloodline was cursed, the surviving heirs voluntarily left the estate. After that, Raphael took his father down with his own hands. He remembered the mage's words. His fate would be the worst he'd ever seen. Raphael thought he couldn't escape that curse until he met her, the girl who filled his empty heart with pain. When Enrica learned most of Raphael's relatives were dead, she apologized for asking. Out of the blue, the Count announces she'll have to eat dinner alone. He's got unexpected business. The heroine was crushed. Before, Kale always made time for dinner with her, even when swamped. Realizing she can't ignore what's happening, she decides to apologize to the Count. But as she approaches his office, she doesn't get to knock, because she notices the door is open and hears voices coming from inside. According to Malua, he's still doubting whether this was the right decision. He's about to check if the lady remembers mentioning she was seriously ill 2 months ago. When Enrica realizes it's about her, the assistant promises Kale he'll try to dig up more info on her family. At that moment, the Count suddenly raises his hand, presses a finger to his lips, and signals Malua to be quiet. In the next instant, he strides toward the door, flings it open to see who's standing outside. Finding no one in the hallway, the Count returns to his office and, after telling his frightened assistant to ignore it, suggests they get back to the conversation. Meanwhile, Enrica sits motionless by the door in a magic circle, invisible to anyone else. Now she realizes that everything's been a bit off. His expression was surprisingly cold, even when he mentioned his family's death, and that cold tone in his voice when he talked about Enrica. This is the first time she's had a thought like that during all this. Maybe Kale isn't really the guy she thought he was before this. There's a whole other side to him. The stress keeps the heroine up all night, and her dark circles don't go unnoticed by Sarah. However, Enrica decides to change the subject and asks the maid if she knows a guy named Tristan Dake. Sarah laughs and points out no woman in their kingdom doesn't know that name. Tristan joined the Knights Order at 18 and became famous for getting into a fling with a nun just a year later, which got him banished from the order. And while everyone says no girl can resist his charm, Sarah tells her mistress not to worry if he goes near Enrica, she'll do everything to stop him. Finished with her hair, the heroine stretches, thinking she'd never guess what Tristan's really like. But you can't judge by looks alone, and therefore Enrica needs to stay out of this for sure. Just as she thinks this, she suddenly spots Tristan Dake sitting on her balcony railing. The guy casually waves with a smile like nothing's wrong. Enrica leaps up from her chair and dashes out onto the balcony, promising the surprised Sarah she'll be back soon. Stepping outside, the girl asks Tristan how in the world he found her here, let alone sneaked into the estate. He says he asked the carriage driver for the address and snuck in through a wall gap. Tristan knows it's not pretty, but he couldn't help it. He was worried about the lady's well-being, scared someone might see him and get him in trouble. Enrica tries to shoo him away. Turning to her, Tristan suddenly asks if something's bothering her. He thinks she looks troubled, like she's got something heavy on her mind. The guy offers to let her open up to him, since talking to an unbiased person might help her feel better. After a while, they're sitting under a tree, and Tristan finds out Enrique's worried someone close to her is hiding something from her. After a beat, the guy says he can help and tells her to follow him. Tristan brings the girl to the kingdom's biggest info guild. He says there's nothing they can't dig up here. Walking into a space that looks more like a tavern, the heroine feels the tension in the air. A serious-looking one-eyed man approaches them and suddenly places a scarred hand on Tristan's shoulder. The girl tenses up at first, but the man bursts into laughter and warmly greets Tristan as the guild leader. Turns out, the one-eyed man, Carl, is his deputy. As far as he remembers, the last time they saw each other was when Tristan nearly got executed for helping a princess escape from a neighboring kingdom. Carl had to rack his brain to figure out how to pull the guy out of that mess. Looking at Enrique, he mistakes her for Tristan's new girlfriend. Before she can explain, she spots Martha walking out with some guy. Heading upstairs for a chat, Carl asks Enrique what exactly she wants to dig up. At first, she wanted to know about Kale, but it's awkward asking Tristan since he's nobility too. The girl says she needs info on her stepsister, who turned a blind eye to their dad, using and tormenting her. Martha Wintersworth just walked out of here, so Enrique wants to know what her sister's scheming now. The guy who just walked her out, clearly on edge, says the request details need to stay under wraps. Tristan nods in approval, and the man admits there's nothing out of the ordinary in the request. Martha asked him to find out if Duke Kronhart and Lady Wintersworth will attend the upcoming hunting banquet. When asked if she's inquired about anything else, the man says he needs to report the guest seating plans in 2 days. The heroine tries to figure out what her sister's plotting if she's sniffing around both her and the Duke. When Enrique leaves the guild, Tristan tells her not to worry because he ordered no info to be given to Martha. The heroine thanks Deja and promises never to forget his kindness today. She promises to pay him for the info as soon as she gets home, but Tristan doesn't want payment and asks her to be his friend instead. This seems a bit fishy to the heroine, but since he helped her, she can't refuse. After she agrees, Tristan offers to take her where he's wanted to go with someone he can call a friend. When they reach the night market, the girl stares around in awe. She's never seen anything like it before. Tristan asks Enrique if she likes it here. He chats with her casually to keep from standing out since they're friends now. Right then, the heroine realizes she's definitely gotten herself into something. Enrica and Tristan stroll through the night market, sampling snacks and browsing the stalls. In one of the tents, they run into a fortune teller who offers to read their futures. The heroine stares in awe at the mysterious woman who looks like she stepped out of another world. Flipping through her tarot cards, the fortune teller tells Enrica to let go of the idea that she took something that doesn't belong to her. It was always hers to begin with. She also tells the girl to be nice to the guy beside her. He'd give his life for her without a second thought. Enrica can't believe the fortune teller is talking about Tristan. The fortune teller turns to the young man and asks him to hold out his hand. Looking at his palm, she's stunned by how many women he's been with. Even though Tristan's had a lot of women, he's never known real love. The fortune teller says if he doesn't want to spend the rest of his life alone, he needs to become a decent person. Deciding that's enough for one day, Enrica shoves Tristan out of the tent. She thinks it's pretty weird to talk about stuff like that in front of strangers. But the guy admits the woman's words aren't a lie. Tristan was born into a boring, old-fashioned knight family and spent his whole life pretending to be some polished, well-mannered knight. At some point, he just wanted to ditch it all. If a loneliness prophecy is the price for living freely, he's ready to pay it. Living against his own will by his family's orders sounds a lot like Henrica's fate before her reincarnation. She smiles and praises Tristan for choosing to enjoy the life of a rogue and a ladies' man. Suddenly, the guy approaches her, strokes her face, and asks if Henrica knows how to win a woman's heart. According to him, it's pretty easy. Just never be sincere with her. But the heroine thinks that kind of behavior is despicable. She suggests they part ways if Tristan's gonna keep spouting that same old nonsense. The girl realizes how dumb it was for her to buy into his seriousness, even for a second. The guy clarifies, "Does that mean he's out of luck winning Henrica's heart now?" Over breakfast on the boat one morning, Kale asks the heroine if she enjoyed her morning stroll. The girl was so shocked she even choked. Henrica was sure she snuck back from the night market unnoticed, so she tells him she never left her room yesterday. Kale figures she was just too busy wandering around here and there, because he's certain it was her coming to him at dawn in a dream. After calming down a bit, thinking the Count is only talking about his dream, Enrique suddenly realizes what he's really getting at. But when she asks what exactly he dreamed, Kale playfully replies that the sun's still too high for such conversations. He finds it amusing how fired up Enrique gets over his joke. Birds land beside him, and the Count feeds them breadcrumbs from his palm. Watching him now, the heroine thinks, this is definitely the Kale she knows. That other side of him she saw the night before last feels more like a dream now. The Count notices the worry on Enrique's face. Something on your mind? He asks. She counters, you know how to hunt, right? Every year this time, the imperial family throws a hunting party. Enrique's wanted to check it out forever, so she asks the Count, you cool with me going? Kale repeats, you don't need my okay if this is what you want. But he adds, Archduke Raphael Kronhardt'll be there too. The Count, due to some issues, probably won't be able to make it, or stick around if things go south. He's got his reasons to be worried, so if you're set on going, you'll need a bodyguard. A while later, they head to the Count's estate training grounds. A man with scars on his face suddenly appears in front of them like he popped out of the ground. His entrance is so shocking that Enrique's shaking with fear. The knight apologizes to the Count and reminds him he was the one who ordered silent movement training last time. Bacchus, vice commander of the Dawn Order, introduces himself to Lady Wintersoar and offers his apologies. The man says it's an honor to meet the commander's bride in person. Enrique's stunned that Kale leads knights, and he admits he can handle a sword a little. Bacchus takes the couple to the training ground, where all the knights are already lined up by the Count's order. Kale officially introduces his bride, Lady Wintersoar, to everyone. The knights exchange surprised glances, realizing the rumors were true. Their cold, unyielding commander is actually getting married. The training ground's vibe feels weirdly tense to the heroine, but not knowing the real reason, Enrique thinks they all just see the Count as her lover, who stole her from the Archduke. Kale suggests moving to the point and asks if any knights are willing to volunteer as his bride's guards. The heroine's too embarrassed to look anywhere, since honor-driven knights probably won't agree to guard someone like her. Yet when she lifts her eyes, Enrique's shocked to see every knight has raised their hand. The Count tells the knights to be honest and promises no consequences for it, but everyone's in agreement. They all say they want to serve the lady. Honestly, for the knights, guarding a cute girl is 100 times better than putting up with the commander's hellish training sessions. Kale lets Enrique know she can pick her own escort, but the Count adds that if any of the knights catch her eye, it might be a problem, since he gets really jealous. Looking her straight in the eyes and kissing her hand, Kale repeats, again, that he's a really jealous guy. The knights gawk at the scene with their jaws dropped. Even though Enrique's clearly embarrassed by the Count's public display, he's doing it on purpose, as a warning to everyone. Right then, Manhwa sprints onto the training ground with an urgent message from the Imperial Palace. The Count apologizes to Enrique, who tells him not to worry about her and to hurry up. But Kale doesn't want to leave his bride alone, so he asks Hayden to look after her while he's away. The guy's all too happy to follow orders and says the commander can count on him. Even though Hayden joined the order just a month ago, he's got plenty of energy, and he's beyond thrilled to serve the lady. He shows Enrique the training ground where most of the drills happen. That's where the big duels go down too. Hayden says that sometimes, if they're lucky, the commander himself jumps in on the training. From what he says, he's never seen the commander lose, because he's one of the continent's deadliest warriors. It's weird the girl can't wrap her head around this guy being so skilled, yet never mentioned in the novel. As Enrique walks past the training ground with her bodyguard, a chunk of a practice sword whips right toward her. Hayden springs into action without a second thought, throwing his body in front of the girl. The board cracks into his shoulder, and he drops to his knees, gripping his bruised arm. Later, after his wound's been patched up, Enrique swings by to check on him. She voices her sympathy to Hayden. After all, a knight's hand is their livelihood. The truth is, the heroine had tried to blast that board away with magic, but her powers still aren't strong enough. When Hayden spots the guilt on her face, he insists Lady Wintersoar stop blaming herself. Since she's the commander's fiancée, she'll soon be the new boss, and knights protect their masters. That's the code. The heroine grins and tosses out a proposal to make Hayden her personal knight. He's floored by the offer, so stunned he turns beet red before even saying yes. He leaps off the bed, grabs his sword, and demands to be knighted immediately. Hayden presents Enrica with the weapon, drops to one knee, and begs her to lay the blade on his shoulder. He's too eager to wait, and the heroine, thrown off by the suddenness, nods without knowing if this just works that way. With a flick of her wrist, Lady Wintersore knights Hayden, and he swears his life is hers to command. At that moment, another knight enters the room to check how his comrade is doing. Seeing the sword in Enrica's hands, he freezes for a second in shock. Shaking off the surprise, the guy rushes to Hayden, ranting how he could be inducted without the commander's approval. While scolding his buddy for treating knightly duty so carelessly, Enrica decides to make her presence known. Coming to his senses, Sasha of the Order apologizes to her and introduces himself. He regrets how his broken training sword nearly caused a disaster and insists there's no excuse for it. Sasha promises to report his mistake to the commander and accept any punishment he thinks fair. But Enrica doesn't see the need. After all, breaking a training sword takes serious effort. She suggests keeping the incident between them and tells Sasha to focus on training instead of punishment. Both knights are deeply moved by how angelic their mistress has turned out to be. When Kale finished his business, Enrica told him she'd inducted Hayden as a personal knight. The girl worries the Count might be angry she took the initiative on her own. According to Kale, Hayden's young but incredibly talented and loyal, one of the most worthy candidates. The Count's just surprised the kid impressed Enrica so much, she made such a quick decision. The heroine admits there's something she wants to ask Kale. The guy is surprised by Enrica's desire to learn swordplay, but she thinks she can't rely on just him and Hayden until her magic is fully back. So she figures it's a solid idea to at least pick up the basics of self-defense. The next day, Kale starts teaching Enrica the fundamentals, pulling her into a hug from behind to show her the right grip on a sword. They're so close. For a second, he thinks he can hear her heartbeat thudding against his chest. Enrica threatens to quit this whole thing if he keeps teasing her. Kale holds her even tighter and reminds her it was her idea to start with. Knights passing by the training ground watch the scene unfold with curiosity. Sasha notices that for the first time, she sees a genuine smile on the commander's face. By the end of the day, Enrica's trained herself into total exhaustion. She wouldn't have had to do this if she'd made a contract with Vermont and gotten her magic back already. Deciding to sign with the familiar no matter what, the girl bursts into the room and yells for the cat to come over. But the room is oddly quiet, and the demon's nowhere in sight. Enrica suddenly hears Vermont calling her from upstairs and hurries up the steps to see what's going on. When she reaches the top, the girl can't believe her eyes. There's a stranger with cat ears and a tail standing there. Spotting the blanket he's wrapped around his bare body, she screams for help and backs away fast. The familiar catches up to Enrica, slams into her with his whole body, and pins her to the floor. Vermont tells the girl to calm down. Only now, when she gets a good look, she recognizes him. Later, once the demon's all dressed up, the heroine eyes his real form with curiosity. He claims that as a cat, he had better control over his magic. Now he's got so little magic, even a simple transformation is out of the question. That's why he had to revert to his original form. The heady scent of raw magic is too much for the demon. He snaps and agrees to make a contract with Enrica. Vermont needs to take in her magic to make it work. He's past the point of no return. The demon pounces and bites into her neck with his fangs. The room lights up like a supernova. Henrica's yanked off the floor and floats weightlessly. They're bound by blood now. Henrica's an actual mage from here on out. She catches herself noticing just how hot the demon looks. Vermont notices her checking him out and plays it up. "You've got it bad, huh?" He smirks. Done with the jokes, the demon gets serious. "Why the hell were you at that hunting banquet, Winterthorn?" The knights told him. He couldn't believe she'd throw herself into that deadly event without a shred of power. According to Vermont, even after signing the contract, she can't unlock her full magical potential without any skills. The demon tells the girl to avoid doing anything reckless and to try not to get lost in the woods. He promises to teach Enriku fire magic if she freezes and show her a spell to tell edible plants from the poisonous ones. And most importantly, if she wants to summon Vermont, she needs to slightly wound her neck and let the blood flow. Even though the demon doesn't want his lady to suffer, she needs to remember that one drop of blood could save her life someday. On the day of the hunting banquet, Sarah steps out to see Enriku off. She apologizes for not going with her lady, where her help might have been needed. A few days ago, the maid asked Enriku to let her stay at the estate to do something here. And even though the heroine doesn't know Sarah's motives, she couldn't refuse. convinced she has solid reasons. The maid asks the knights to take good care of her lady. Sarah says her heart would break if a single scratch appears on Lady Wintersore's beautiful face. Along the way, Sasha asks Enrico if everything's okay, since he thinks something's bothering her. Even though the girl says everything's fine, her mind keeps replaying Kale's words that Duke Kronhart will be at the banquet. A possible meeting with the Archduke in the Count's absence worries Enrico. But the heroine has no choice if she wants to find out what Martha has planned. Even if Enrico runs into Kronhart face to face, he can't do a damn thing to her with all these nobles around. The carriage finally pulls up to the hunting banquet grounds. The vibe here is way better than she expected. Enrica starts scouting the place. Hayden promises to catch up once he's armored up. Enrica strolls through the campsite, then heads toward the woods, watching every little critter she passes with curiosity. After a while, she realizes she's wandered too far and needs to head back. Suddenly, hoofbeats echo behind her. She spins around and there, black armored knight, full view. Kronhart has to show up at royal court events, but they've never done it for him. The nobility's hidden political games? Always a snooze for him. Under normal circumstances, Enrica's requests would have grated on the Duke's nerves. But something about her. He just can't bring himself to make her sad. Kronhart's known everything she's been up to, via the guy he paid to tail her. She said she goes off somewhere after sunset. And yeah, he's guessing it's about the banquet intel. It's messing with his own head, knowing she's hiding stuff, yet he doesn't want to cage her in. He likes knowing she's still fighting to break his curse. Thinking of him, risking everything for him, Melua tells the Duke the king wants to see him in the palace reception hall. Heading to the audience, Kronhart orders his assistant to ready his horse and weapons for when he returns. If the king asks for him during the banquet, Melua should let Bacchus handle it, since the Duke plans to go hunting in the forest. The assistant worries this might get the master in trouble and wants to know where he's really headed. Kronhart says he's going to Enrique. Something about a bad feeling in his gut. Now he's towering on his horse, looking down at the heroine who's stunned by the sudden run-in with a stranger. The Duke takes off his helm, and the girl freezes when she realizes the knight is Kale. He says he wrapped up his work early and couldn't shake the worry about Enrique, so he came straight here. Now the heroine finally realizes the Count has been chasing her this whole time. Not Hayden. Kale smirks and teases. "Didn't miss me, your future wife?" When she stays quiet, he climbs back onto his horse and says if she keeps bringing up Hayden, he'll send him to Enrique instead. She lunges for his cloak, yanking it to stop him mid-motion. Flushing bright red, she admits the truth. She's glad he showed up today. So Enrique begs him not to leave. The Count grins, says he can't say no to her, and kneels on one knee. At that moment, the girl notices something odd moving under his cloak. Kale pulls out a rabbit from under his cloak, one he picked up in the woods, thinking it might please Enrique. The heroine can't hide her delight and awe at this fluffy little ball. The girl suggests letting the rabbit go quietly. Though the Count actually thought Enrique might practice hunting on it, he asks her to forget that and sets the creature free. Suddenly, the rabbit stops and stares at the heroine with its red eyes. The girl thinks she clearly hears him tell her to be careful and not trust what surrounds her. Jumping to her feet, Enrique asks if Kale heard the rabbit speak in human language. The Count explains to the girl that this forest is also called the Ghost Forest. It's been royal property since time immemorial, which is why it's remained almost untouched by humans. They say mysterious magical creatures live here, and some wizards claim they can understand their speech. Adjusting the straps on his armor, Kale asks Enrique what that rabbit told her. The girl repeats the words that she shouldn't trust what surrounds her. At that moment, a loud, drawn-out cry echoes from somewhere behind. Kale decides to check it out, but first advises Enrique to return to camp. The heroine, worried Martha might be in trouble, says she's going with the Count to check out that scream. They mount up and ride toward where the sound came from. The scream echoes again, and at that moment, 3 knights gallop toward Kale and Enrique. One of the men, catching up to the commander, reports a monster has shown up in the forest. Luckily, it hasn't hurt anyone yet, but a bunch of people saw it. Since it hasn't gotten far, the commander orders the witnesses to be brought to him. Enrique says they should tell the palace and shut down the feast. Kale agrees it's the right call, but the current king's all about tradition. The hunting feast is one of the royal family's biggest events. They'll try to keep this under wraps from the nobles. So the Count decides to take Enrique to the camp, then handle the monster himself. Out of nowhere, an arrow flies their way, but Kale pushes Enrique down and blocks it. From the trees, a group of armed guys in matching gear steps out. Spotting the commander they've been after, the guys rush in to kill him. Shielding Enrique's eyes, the Count unsheaths his sword and spurs the horse forward. They manage to break free, and on the way out, Kale says those guys are probably hired killers. Although we can't be sure yet, they were probably sent by the prince. According to Kale, it's because he's one of the people who support the second prince instead of him. He apologizes to Henrika for dragging her into all this. But at this moment, the girl is only thinking that the second prince is the main character from the original novel Sophia is in love with. Out of nowhere, another arrow flies toward them, and Kale's horse rears up. Launching himself out of the saddle, the Count pulls Henrika close and rolls her, so she lands on him, avoiding the impact. They tumble down the hill for a few seconds, and when the heroine opens her eyes, she realizes they're hanging over a cliff near the waterfall. The girl shouts at Kale to let go and stop risking his life for her, but he's not about to let go of Henrika. She insists the Count can save himself, and anyway, her magic will protect her. Kale smiles and lets go of a hand, but not the one holding Henrika, the one gripping the cliff. Mid-air, the man tells the heroine not to worry, saying he has to protect her. When Henrika opens her eyes, she doesn't know where she is at first. She just fell into the water with Kale, yet now she's sitting on a bed, dry and in different clothes. From behind the door, the girl hears a very familiar voice and stands up to see who it is. Peeking into the next room, the heroine sees herself sitting by the window next to a man she can't make out. Enrica tells the man she overheard he's not exactly what the rumors make him out to be. Twirling some kind of vial in her hands, she says she heard he killed his brothers and sisters for the inheritance. The man says it's unfortunately true and wants to know what else she's heard. Enrica says they say he gets off on seeing other people's blood because he's cruel and heartless and wants to marry her just to have a plaything. He doesn't deny there's cruelty in him, but promises to never show her his dark side. Enrica wants to know why, and as he steps closer to answer, his voice gets softer until it vanishes. Kale, soaked to the bone, screams her name in desperation, trying to rouse her after the fall. Finally, she opens her eyes, struggling to remember what just happened in her dream. The Count grabs Enrica and holds her tight, thanking the gods it was all a close call, and she's still breathing. The strong current carried them too far beyond the hunting grounds. But Kale's sure getting back won't be hard since his knights know this forest inside out. As he comforts her, she suddenly goes silent and eyes the space behind the Count in terror. Turning around, the man faces something genuinely terrifying, a massive monster. Kale dryly thanks the beast for doing them the favor of showing up. As the Count charges in, another monster sneaks up on Enrica from behind. He wraps his bony tail around the girl and lifts her off the ground. The heroine can't figure out how to fight back, since her magic is so weak it's practically useless. She remembers Vermont drilling her on magic basics and making her read through stacks of books before the banquet. One of them mentioned monsters can only move in the shadows. Vermont said most of them are light sensitive. Even the faintest light magic could drive them back. Remembering that, Henrika raises her hands, forms a glowing circle, and blasts the monster away. Kale catches her, gently sets her down to rest, and steps up to finish the monster off. The Count lunges at the light-afraid beast and slices its skeleton into pieces without breaking a sweat. Suddenly, the monster's severed head latches onto his arm with a vicious bite. Kale shoves the head off, but not before it rips open his arm with deep gashes. Henrika dashes to the Count, checking for injuries. Kale waves off the injury. What matters is, you're okay. He notices tears streaking down Henrika's cheeks. The heroine blames herself. She insisted on coming here. Kyle gently wipes her tears. I didn't save you so you'd cry over it. Enrica asks to see her hand, because she's learned magic that stops blood. However, looking at the wound, the girl surprisingly discovers it's gotten worse. Kale explains that the monster eats karuna fruits to produce poison, which is now obviously spreading through his whole body. But according to him, karuna poison isn't dangerous for humans. It's more like a hallucinogenic drug used for interrogations. Enrica cheerfully speculates that in this case, everything is fine, since Kale has nothing to hide from her. It starts to rain, and the couple takes shelter in one of the forest caves. Although this poison is considered harmless to humans, the man feels his condition worsening. Enrica hands him herbs with berries that reduce fever and act as an antidote. Although the girl offers Kale to lie down and rest, he refuses, fearing he might start hallucinating under the poison. Enrica promises to be understanding if he suddenly says something rude or hurtful in his sleep, since hallucinations aren't tied to his real personality. She convinces the Count to sleep so he can quickly overcome the poison's effect. Kale asks her not to leave, even if he suddenly behaves very strangely, as the night forest is very dangerous. Enrica promises him that, and the man finally falls asleep. The heroine didn't notice how she herself fell asleep, and the girl is awakened by the touch of a cold, sharp blade at her chest. Lifting her head, Enrica freezes in horror, discovering that Kale stands over her with a weapon. He demands she introduce herself and explain who she is. Enrica realizes the memory loss must be the side effect he warned her about. She tries to explain to Kale that she's his fiancée, Lady Wintersore, the one he rescued and got hurt saving. But the man with a cold smile insists that can't be true. He demands to know why a beautiful, seasoned killer like her lured him into this hellhole. Enrica tries to make Kale remember who he is and what day it is, but he suddenly gets angry, thinking she's calling him an idiot, and snaps that he just turned 18. She tries to explain he's 22. They're at a hunting banquet where he saved her and got hurt by a monster, and now he's got memory problems. Kale demands proof that this imposter is his fiancée. The heroine frantically tries to figure out how to prove it, but she doesn't dare tell him about the curse, fearing he might see her as a spy and kill her. So she decides to show Kale proof of their love. Enrica explains he gave her new dresses and jewelry every day, and even gave her a private room in the mansion before their wedding. She doubts he'd do any of that for someone he didn't love. But the Count argues he still can't remember, so there's no real proof she's his fiancée. Claiming listening to her was pretty entertaining, and she's earned a painless death. Kale swings his sword. All of a sudden, a bright flash from the horizon blinds a man. He tosses his sword aside and clutches his eyes. Enrica sprints over to check if the Count is okay. Noticing Kale's gaze has eased up, she tells him what just happened. Plopping him on the ground, the heroine bustles around, checking his temperature, mood, and wounds. Locking eyes with her, Kale recalls how she mentioned being his fiancé. He asks Enrica if that means she loves him too. Cupping her face, he asks if that means he can kiss her right now. Knowing refusal might raise suspicion, the heroine closes her eyes and braces herself. Brushing her lips, Kale announces with a smile, "You're obviously my real fiancé." Then, he suddenly announces he's too tired, plops down on the ground, and decides to catch some Z's. After a while, Enrica notices his fever's breaking, but she panics, unsure what to do if he never regains his memories. Just as she tries to push away the negative thoughts, Kale opens his eyes. Turning to Enrica, he says she was the first to care for him in a tough time. The heroine asks what his life was like in the past 18 years. Most of the time, he spent fighting his brothers and their goons who tried to kill him. But since he's still breathing, he clearly won. Enrica confirms his guess. He's living in a huge mansion, got the wealth and the fame. But none of that matters to him. What he cares about is something else entirely. The Count wants to know if he's become someone who can protect her. She says yes, straight up. "You're my hero." Kale says if she's really his bride and loves him, she's the only one who matters to him. Leaning his head on Enrica's shoulder, he adds they'll stay together until death parts them. They chat for hours. Everything from their future life together to little quirks and habits. 18-year-old Kale's rough around the edges, a bit naive. He can't hide his feelings well, but Enrica thinks it's adorable. Noticing he's asleep, she promises he'll break the curse and live longer than her. The next morning, she wakes up on the ground, covered by Kale's cloak. Realizing he's not around, she panics. He might be out in the woods under the poison's effect. Something could happen. But the Count suddenly walks up to her, holding a bundle in his injured hand. Enrica misses his polite way of talking to her, so much she throws herself into his arms. Hugging him, she confesses she was so scared, she thought she'd never see him again. Holding her close, Kale apologizes for making her worry. Devouring the food the Count brought, Enrica asks if he really doesn't remember anything. The man asks if he said anything weird last night, and her memories flash through her mind. She smiles and replies he didn't say anything strange, and she actually liked it. Kale grins and says next time, he'll definitely eat some Quran fruit before talking to her. Then he suddenly hands her the monster's fang. He says if they show this fang to the royal family, they'll deny it came from the beast. In exchange for her silence, Kale demands they declare Enrica the contest winner. They'll throw a grand banquet, giving her the perfect chance to boost her social standing. The royal family's full of vices anyway, so they can use that to their advantage. He also hands her a magic stone he found along the way that helps with magic. He suggests she try it out right now. Focusing, she feels the stone actually helps with her magic, but she'll need more time to learn how to use it properly. so Enrica decides to ask Vermont all about it later. Meanwhile, Marcia rides through the forest with her knights, trying to track down her missing sister. As they ride, they spot the corpse of a slain monster. The knight figures a pro was behind this, but he also senses a hint of magic. If word gets out about a monster lurking in the royal forests, there'll be hell to pay. When Marcia asks if Enrica could have taken down the beast, the knight can't say for sure, but he's certain it was a mage's handiwork. Weeks ago, Duke Wintersore lost his mind over his ungrateful daughter. He'd gone to great lengths to get Enrica married to Archduke Kronhard. Now, Raphael's ignoring him, not replying to a single letter. For a while, Marcia sat in silence, listening to Wintersore whine about his crushed hopes of securing the duchy's support. Then she suddenly snapped, "I'd run away too if he treated me like that." Not believing Marcia was taking her sister's side, the Duke glared. "Spit it out!" he snapped. Grabbing her shoulders, he hissed, "You've lived in luxury because of me, not some fairy tale." Wintersore sent Marcia to find out why Enrica hasn't been answering and what her plans are. He ordered his daughter to stop Enrica's plans at all costs. "Let her see the seriousness of it," he said. "Then she'll finally answer me." Not knowing how to stop her sister's plans without being cruel, Marcia decides to put her in an uncomfortable spot. She tells her companion to take one of the monster's bones. While Enrica sleeps, Raphael grabs her hand with one hand and gently strokes her face with the other, leaning his forehead against hers. He shuts his eyes and breathes in the scent of her skin. When the heroine wakes up, they head toward the camp, still about an hour's hike away. Suddenly, the pair spots a messenger hawk overhead, caught in a tracking spell. Kale tells Enrica to hold out her arm, and the hawk instantly lands on her forearm. The letter tied to its claw says Enrica's being searched for by everyone, and the writer's really worried about her. From the formal style and initials TD, she figures out Tristan Dake sent it. He says he started looking for Lady Wintersore the second he got there, but didn't find a single clue. Plus, Enrica's younger sister showed up at the camp acting shady, flashing everyone some monster bones and bragging she took down 2 giant beasts on her own. Tristan thinks Enrica might be behind it and keeps begging her to come back. When Kale asks who sent the letter, she says it's from a friend. The Count tries to hide his anger from her, but still can't help snarking about her friendship with Tristan. But Enrica argues that's not what matters now, and tells Kale to read how Martha's trying to claim their victory as her own. The Count says she's got nothing to worry about if he goes with her and vouches for their victory. Right at that moment, Bacchus approaches them, having finally tracked down the commander. The guy's beyond relieved that both lords are safe. Bacchus says his assistant warned him the commander's probably on the brink, so they need to move fast. But Kale tells the knight not to stress over him. He can hold out for another day or so. Enrique wants to know what edge they're talking about. The Count lets Bacchus spill everything. His bride already knows about his curse. The knight says the commander has to keep himself alive by filling the void in his heart with magical energy. It's handled by the commander's mage assistant, who says the magic needs to be administered more and more often as time goes on. At first it was every 10 days, then weekly, and now every 3 days. Today's the day. Even though Bacchus says missing a single dose could be really dangerous, Kale tells him to stop, says he won't have time for it today. The heroine insists he go back to the camp, not getting why the Count's being so stubborn. The Count explains the magic process sometimes takes half a day. If that's the case, Enrique'll have to argue against her sister alone. He can't leave her in the lurch right now. But the heroine doesn't care about winning this contest. Right now, Kaylee's life is her top priority. Since it's hard to say no to her after such a heartfelt confession, the Count agrees to do what she asks. No matter where Enrica goes, she needs a guard detail with her. And since they might run into wild animals on the road, she's got to ride a horse. Bacchus hands his horse over to the heroine. The ride to the camp takes about 10 minutes. Enrica smiles at Kale, promises to meet up soon, and heads off to the camp. After seeing her off, the commander tells the knight he's not heading there just yet. He's got another job to handle. He's going hunting, needs to prepare for any unexpected twists. Enrica arrives at the camp and apologizes to Hayden for making him worry. As for Marta, the knight says things are pretty complicated. The award ceremony's about to start, but the nobles are still bickering over whether the monster even counts as a valid trophy. Right then, Enrica spots her sister chatting with 2 girls who are gushing over her bravery. Marta acts all flustered by how eager they are to crown her the event's winner. One girl wonders how such a delicate lady took down a monster without even a sword. Marta stays cool and says she just learned archery and shattered the beast's bones with an arrow. Enrica's annoyed her sister keeps pulling every trick in the book to steal that victory. Tired of waiting, Enrica asks Hayden when the ceremony kicks off. The ceremony starts soon. The host thanks everyone for showing up to the banquet. He mentions a monster showed up in the forest during the competition and was taken down by Marta Wintersore. The royal court decided to honor Lady Marta and officially named her the hunting tournament champion. Before the host can wrap up his speech, Enrica steps forward and cuts him off. She apologizes for butting in, but insists it's super urgent. This is about royal family honor. Turning to the crowd, she asks if anyone saw Marta take out the beast. Scared of getting caught, she accuses her sister of jealousy over her win. But Enrica won't back down. She says big claims need real proof, not just a pat on the back. Marta's friend jumps in, reminding the jury about the monster bone she brought back from the woods. Marta tells her sister to show the bone, but she digs in her heels and says she doesn't have to. Marta says they already showed the bone to the judges, and they accepted it as proof. Tristan steps forward and tells her to do it again, promising the whole high society will recognize her win. Marta hands her sister the bone and demands an apology, swearing she'll forget this ever happened. Enrica won't back down, showing the crowd the bone is as tough as steel. Marta couldn't have pierced it with an arrow. The girl flips out, screaming she's not lying and that she has real proof, unlike her sister. Enrica smirks and declares she has proof, because she's the one who actually killed the monster. The heroine raises her hands to show off her magic powers. Without them, shattering the beast's bones is impossible. Plus, Enrica's got a witness who can back this up. Turning to Knight Tom, she asks him to explain it all to everyone here. Earlier, when she met him at camp, Enrica asked him to give a statement and recount how he ran into her in the woods. Tom agreed, but he asked first if he should mention seeing the commander with her. Enrica knew the royal family could pin it on Kale for not reporting the monster right away. To keep the Count from getting in trouble, she told the knight to keep that part under wraps. And now, Tom's explaining how, while he was on watch in the forest, he spotted 2 giant monsters. No one got hurt, but the situation was sketchy, and that's when Lady Enrica showed up. She didn't report it right away, so she wouldn't start a panic among the guests, then decided to handle the monster herself. Holding up the monster's tooth as proof, she explains how she blinded it with magic, then took it down with the knight. If anyone's skeptical, she's ready to show the monster's body to the mages. They'll see the magic marks right away. Then Enrica tells Hayden to grab the bow and arrows so Martha can show off her skills, just like she did. Martha asks for an hour to get ready. Enrica smirks and asks her sister, "When you ran into that monster, did you have an hour to get ready?" Marta overhears everyone around her slamming her for trying to steal her sister's spotlight. Coming up to her, Enrica whispers in the girl's ear, "She should have known how it'd all end." The heroine says she's got her own things to defend to the end. If her sister tries to butt in again, she's done. "Can't take the heat," Marta bolts, trying to get away from the embarrassment fast. Host apologizes for the wait, thanks everyone for being patient, and calls up whoever he names next. 4th place goes to Miss Sophia Fagrin, who caught 1 fox, 1 deer, and 3 badgers. Enrica stares at the main heroine of the original novel, all admiration. Reading that book, the girl thought she was a bad guy, but now Sophia looks like a sweetheart. Suddenly, Lady Fagrin whispers something in the host's ear. He announces she made a pretty wild choice and's dedicating all her trophies today to Lady Wintersore. Enrica's totally moved by the gesture, even if she can't figure out why Sophia's suddenly her fan. 3rd place goes to Tristan Dake, last year's 2-time champ. Stepping on stage, Tristan gives props to the winner for taking down that monster. So Tristan's dedicating all his trophies today to Lady Enrica too. Even though the heroine's happy about it, she can feel the sneaky dagger eyes from the young ladies around her. Enrica freezes in fear when the host announces the 2nd place winner, Raphael Kronhartz. The Archduke's trophies are 5 wolves and a black panther. Even though Kronhartz couldn't attend the ceremony for some reason, he made a bold, unexpected move and dedicated all his trophies to Lady Enrica too. It's clear with Sophia and Tristan, but no one gets why the Archduke is doing this. After all, she humiliated him by turning him down and being seen everywhere with Kale. Enrica even gets the feeling it's a kind of threat from Kronhartz, like he's trying to say she's his prey. Among the aristocrats, whispers spread that the rumors about this not being planned have been confirmed. And then the host announces the winner of today's hunting tournament, Lady Enrica Wintersore. The nobles applaud Enrica and thank her for saving them. And from this moment on, Enrica isn't just the Duke's eldest daughter or the Archduke's fiancée. She's the one whose name people truly remember. The host asks Enrica to share her feelings. The heroine smiles and says she couldn't have pulled it off alone, even though everyone thinks she took down the monster by herself. So she wants all the credit to go to her dear fiancé, her knight who stood by her and kept her safe. Later, the nobles congratulate Enrica and praise her heartfelt speech. Baxus approaches the girl to give her the commander's message. He says Enrica needs to get back to her fiancé as soon as possible. After Kale was given the magic, he immediately fell asleep and hasn't woken up since. The heroine strokes his head, worried the procedure was delayed because of her. Melué claims the magic was administered on time, and maybe the reason is his body's getting weaker from the curse. Even though Kale's condition stabilized, he keeps sleeping, and the assistant asks Enrica for advice. After a quick think, the heroine realizes she has a way to handle this. The girl approaches Bahus and asks to borrow his blade. She also asks the men to leave the room for a bit, but Melua refuses, thinking Enrica wants to free the Count from his suffering. Bahus doesn't like it either, since he thinks the girl wants to follow the Count to the afterlife. The heroine asks them to stop worrying and just give her time. Alone, Enrica grips a sharp blade in her hands and stands over Kale. The girl is sure a high-ranking demon like Vermont must know how to heal the Count. She jabs the dagger's tip into her palm, spilling blood, just like her familiar taught her. Just a moment later, as if from nowhere, Vermont appears and leaps out of the teleport right onto Enrica's head. The cat scans the girl anxiously, trying to figure out what happened, who attacked her, and how much blood she lost. Enrica's really touched by his concern, but she reminds him Vermont was the one who taught her to spill her own blood to call him. He just doesn't like when something's messing with his magic recovery. After making sure she's okay, he wants to know why she summoned him in the first place. Knowing Vermont doesn't like Kale, Enrica's trying to convince him the situation's critical. The Count's body's fading even after we pumped magic into him, and he's not coming around. She starts flattering the familiar, saying a demon as mighty as Vermont must know how to help Kale. The cat admits he's been busy, and since his master's goal is to help the Count, he tried to figure it out. Vermont leaps on Kale and declares his curse is solid. It doesn't mix with Enrica's magic. But he says this incompatibility might actually work in their favor now. Incompatibility means Kale's super sensitive to her magic. Even a little could shock him. If she uses her magic now, she might just wake him up. Vermont tells Enrica to picture pressing down on Kyle's chest with a magic surge, then hit him with it. Demon's time's up. He vanishes, yelling at his master to do it his way. She hovers over Kale, stretches out her hands, and pushes her magic into his chest like Vermont taught. At first, she thinks it's not working, but the Count finally opens his eyes. He stares at Enrica and asks who the hell she is. The heroine can't believe Kale lost his memory again. The man suddenly pulls Enrica close and says it's an honor to meet the banquet winner. Realizing the Count's joking around again, Enrica jumps back and scolds him for scaring her like that. When Kale asks if she actually won the hunting tournament, Enrica says it's all thanks to him. Because of the Count, she feels like she's finally earned her place in high society. Kale tells her to lie down next to him as a reward, and promises he won't do anything to hurt her. He smirks and repeats the request, just asking her to lie down beside him. Even though it's not the first time, being next to him still feels thrilling to her. She can't wrap her head around how looking at him makes her heart beat faster. Just being near Kale sends shivers through her. She asks the Count if the Archduke is really skipping the winner's banquet. Kale says he doesn't know and asks why she's suddenly so curious. Enrica tells him Kronhart dedicated his trophies to her. Even if she doesn't get why he's doing it, she's not running from her destiny anymore and wants to pick her path. Since they're getting married soon, Enrica announces she'll never tie the knot with the Kronhart Duke. Without saying a word to the girl, Kale suddenly wraps his arms around her and holds her close. The heroine is confused by what's happening, but the Count apologizes and asks her to just lie here with him. Still holding her, he suddenly confesses that he wants this moment to last forever. Enrica presses against his strong shoulder and tells him the same thing back. Waking up the next morning, the heroine can't figure out how she ended up in her room. Spotting Sasha standing by her bed, the girl asks him how she got back to the manor. According to the knight, Enrica fell asleep beside the commander, and he carefully carried her here without waking her up. Sasha offers to walk her to breakfast, which the servants have already prepared. As Enrica steps out of the room, the maids greet her with smiles and are happy to see their ladies all right. The steward congratulates her on her victory, saying she was absolutely amazing. When Enrica was living at the Winterthorn estate, no one even cared if she came home or not. Now, looking at the people who are happy to see her, Enrica realizes this is her real home. She suddenly notices Sarah isn't anywhere to be found, usually the first to greet her. According to Sasha, he hasn't seen Lady Winterthorn's maid since he came back to the manor. Promised the night she'll eat later, Enrica takes off in a sprint to find Sarah. Finally, in one of the rooms, she finds the maid packing suitcases. The heroine rushes over to her, trying to figure out what's going on. Sarah seems like she's about to leave, but the girl suddenly shouts, "Don't come any closer, my lady!" Enrica notices Sarah doesn't look like herself. Her hair's a mess, her skin's unnaturally pale. The heroine is really on edge and demands answers from the maid. The girl suddenly announces she's leaving the manor today and begs her not to try to stop her. When Enrica keeps pressing, Sarah suddenly confesses she's been lying to her mistress. The heroine asks for the full truth and promises not to get angry. And then, finally, Sarah admits she's a dark mage. Enrica doesn't get why she decided to confess now, or what happened at the estate while she was gone. Before the hunting banquet, the maid said she had an important errand that kept her from accompanying her lady. Thinking she's deeply disappointed in Enrica, Sarah is about to leave. The heroine tries to quickly figure out if it's better for her if the villain disappears from her life. Maybe this way she won't have any ties to the Duke, and he can't become her lover. But the heroine's mind flashes back to every moment Sarah showed her real care. Even though in the original story this girl was the villain, in Enrica's memory she was always super kind. The heroine runs after Sarah, hugs her, and begs her not to leave. She admits she knew from day one exactly who her maid really is. Even though Enrica actually found out from the book, she tells Sarah she figured it out because she's a mage too. The heroine assures the maid it doesn't matter that she's a dark mage. After all, she cared for her more than anyone ever did. Holding Enrica, Sarah promises she'll never hide anything from her again. Then she decides to explain why she became a dark mage in the first place. 10 years ago, Sarah was the daughter of a poor farmer, living a normal life. No magic, no fancy parties. One day, she brought home a stray little white puppy she'd found on the streets. She told her mom the dog's name was Lily, and from then on, she'd be her little sister. Sometimes the rural routine wore Sarah down, but as long as her mom and Lily were around, everything was fine. One day, years later, she went to the market, and the vendor there slipped her some treats with her purchases. Sarah thanked the woman, who was amazed by her incredible beauty, but the old lady standing nearby told her neighbor she was being too generous with the praise. After all, for a helpless woman, that kind of beauty is just a curse. Sarah ran into the Lord's son along the way. He offered her a glass of his fancy wine. He made it clear that someone like her, a commoner, couldn't even dream of such luxury. "Don't act all holier than thou," he said. Sarah apologized. "I've got field work until late tonight," she replied. She said, "Unlike you, I don't have time for wine and games." Every year, the slings and arrows of insult and hatred kept piling up, but she didn't harden into a bitter shell or bow to their power. At the time, Sarah didn't know a thing. She had no clue she'd spent her whole life regretting what she did. One day, when she got home, everything was trashed. Her mom was sitting on the floor, sobbing. Her mom said some scumbags broke in, started tearing the place apart. Lily got scared and ran outside. Sarah bolted out, hoping to find her beloved pet. She heard a man's voice barking orders to tie up the dog. "So the little brat learns what happens when you disobey." She lunged for Lily, but the Lord's son cut her off. "This is all on you," he spat. "You should have listened to me from the start." She wrenched free and slugged him one. Grabbing Lily, Sarah took off, but the men gave chase. A month passed since then, and the girl's mother kept badgering the Lord's estate, desperate to see her daughter even once. Meanwhile, the guy tormented Sarah, who'd been locked in the dungeon and barely eaten or drunk anything for a whole month. He knew her strength was fading and told her to think carefully about her situation. The Lord could accuse Sarah of insulting a noble, and that could get her hanged. But he promised to ignore her audacity if she agreed to become his concubine. Sarah shot back that becoming his concubine would be the worst punishment imaginable. That set the Lord off. He reminded her he could have the insolent girl hanged tomorrow. As the guy left the dungeon, Sarah suddenly heard a voice coming from the next cell. A man with a disfigured face noted how proud she was and said he liked that about her. He promised to take her with him when he left this place. Sarah found the stranger kinda half mad. but kept her thoughts to herself. Like he'd read her mind, the man said his strength was almost back and vowed to show her everything. That's when Sarah saw magic for the first time. Tracing his finger along the bars, the mage sliced through the iron with one smooth motion. Smiling at the stunned girl with his scarred lips, the man offered to take her with him. The first mage Sarah met in her life became her mentor. She thought his outstretched hand was her salvation, not knowing it marked the start of a terrible fate. After leaving the dungeon, Sarah asked the mage to let her say goodbye to her mother. The woman would have worried if her daughter vanished without a word, but the mage stopped her, because if anyone saw her heading to her mom, the Lord would have dragged the woman into the mess too. He figured her mom could get in trouble for helping, so he promised to let her send a letter once everything settled down. At the time, Sarah thought this was actually the best way to go. They traveled day and night until they finally reached the mage's estate. He announced Sarah would be his apprentice and assistant from that point on. And he had high hopes for her. Magic turned out to be the first thing she'd ever really wanted to master. She wanted to become a powerful mage to protect her mom and Lily, and to make sure no one could ever bring her down again. To do that, Sarah took on every job her master assigned. She didn't just handle grueling chores and his weird tasks, but she also became his test subject, putting herself at risk. One day, the potion's side effects were so bad, Sarah, writhing in agony, begged the mage to stop it. The man stormed up to the girl and slapped her hard, furious that she had the nerve to defy him. He warned that if Sarah ever dared to defy him again, she'd never be allowed back home. The mage stopped pretending. His kindness was just a mask. Terrified of never seeing her mom again, Sarah endured the pain and kept up with her studies. She vowed that one day she'd become a mage herself and return to her family home. One day, knights showed up at the estate after getting a tip that a dark mage was living there. They demanded the master of the house surrender right away. Sarah rushed over to her teacher, told him what happened, but what shocked her most was that a dark mage actually lived in the house. The man promised to hold off the knights and told Sarah to escape through a secret route. Meanwhile, the knights were pounding on the door, demanding the residents come out. Sarah caught the smell of smoke and realized with horror that the mansion was burning. Realizing someone had set fire to the back of the house, the knights decided to flee the estate before the flames spread to the whole building. Sarah knew the dark blue flames were her teacher's magic, so she scrambled to get out of the house. But when she reached the secret exit, she found it sealed shut. That's when it hit her. The exit was blocked by a complicated magical seal. The dark blue flames showed no sign of dying out. The order to escape through the secret route was a trap. The fire mage had betrayed Sarah. The girl used everything she'd learned and teleported. Without hesitation, she headed straight for her hometown, leaving the sting of betrayal behind. Even with the betrayal and danger, Sarah was thrilled she'd soon see her mom. But when she reached the familiar neighborhood, she couldn't believe her eyes. Instead of her home, all Sarah found was ruins. Suddenly, a familiar woman's voice called out to her. Turning around, she saw her aunt standing there, eyes wide, finally believing her niece had come back. Sprinting over, the aunt grabbed her arm and demanded how could she run off without telling anyone when they were all so worried. Through her tears, the aunt explained how Sarah's mom, after she vanished, refused to eat or sleep, pleading with the Lord to bring back her daughter. But a year before Sarah's return, her mom had died. A mysterious fire, no one ever found the cause, was to blame. They say the deep blue flames that incinerated this place wouldn't go out, even when they tried to drown them with water. They couldn't even dig a proper grave because the Lord threatened to banish anyone who dared try. So they just left her body on the hill. When Sarah saw her mother's bones, she let out a scream so raw, birds flew from the trees in a panic. Grabbing a dagger, the girl chopped off her long curls, and that same night, the Lord's castle went up in flames. The fire fed by dark magic roared with a blood-red glow. Watching the crimson fire burn, Sarah made a promise to herself. She decided from that moment on, nothing left in her heart but the thirst for vengeance.